Welcome, everyone. My name is Lisa Redamozo. I am with NEC, the Soldiers Education Center, and this is one of the many webinars we're having just to get together to talk about everything and anything related to Talent Search or EOC, the competition that we were just mentioning before we started the recording that we're not sure of. Some folks have heard, and I did hear that as well, that a possible due date is September 2025. I don't think they'll be due at the same time. Usually it's been Talent Search and then EOC a month later. I'm not sure. We're preparing with our current clients that we are acting as though this is going to be due by the end of September. As soon as I find out anything else, or if y'all hear anything, please let us know. You can always email us. I'll ask Donna to put our emails, my email in the chat if you don't already have it. Also in the Q&A, if you could ask any questions that you may have. And it could be regarding the proposals, or if there's anything about right now, identification, recruitment, and selection, or anything in general related to TRIO, if you'd like to talk about that. We do try to put priority on questions that would deal directly with the grant, because as you know, it's unallowable to use any project funds or time or effort while you're getting paid on a federal funding, a funded grant, to try to get additional funding. Isn't that crazy? I thought that was the craziest thing when I first started in TRIO, many, many years ago. I'm like, but I'm only here because of the funding, and look at all this work. So I'm supposed to do this after hours and on the weekends? Yes, and yes, I was told. Or some places they give you they put you take a leave of absence and they pay you out of other funds, things like that. So this is where a time dedicated to answering questions, because we're on our lunch hour and we can talk about grants and grant funded questions during lunch. Otherwise, we'd have to have this after hours, or maybe we'll have some weekend events when y'all are working on this, where we can be live and answer some questions that come in, or you can always email us with those questions. So right now, I don't think we have any questions, unless somebody wants to. I could start going over some of the regulatory language or something that's in the program, the old application. I don't think we have any questions, right? So let me do this then. Let me remind you of the Google Drive. The Google Drive has documents in for both Talent Search and EOC. It's got some good resources that you may want to use. It's got an infographic letting you know our timeline, what you should be working on right now, in order. And it doesn't go, we have a particular order of when we work on sections. It doesn't match the order of the actual narrative, but we start first with the budget, because we know we can knock that out pretty quick. And we're basing that budget off of whatever funding you're getting right now for the number of folks that students you're funded to serve right now. Okay, so we're going to use that as a guide. The minute we find out, and I doubt we're going to get any increases, that's just me, okay, just me, Lisa Redamozo, I could be wrong. So we are telling our clients to act as though you're going to have level funding. And my hope is that when the program application comes out, maybe there'll be a little bit of extra, or maybe they'll just say whatever y'all are getting for your last year of funding is what you're going to ask for your first year of funding. Well, we don't know yet what we're going to get for our last year of funding, but we do know what we're getting right now. So immediately, should take you no more than a couple of hours, if that much, to take your current funding level and to start drafting an Excel budget. And I would recommend that you do it for 5 years out, even though you only have to provide 1 year budget in the, according to the 2021 program application, 1 year budget, that you start planning and going ahead to structure your budget with the same personnel you have, having the same amount of money, but your salaries are probably going to be higher. And also your fringe benefits are going to be higher, because insurance is going up and up. You probably heard me say last week that my insurance went up. I'm mad about it, Donna. It went up 15% just in 1 year. So, hey, if you're on level funding, if you don't get an increase in your salary or your funds coming in, how can you afford that, where you've got to take from other areas? So we're nothing without our budget. and we're nothing without our personnel, especially with EOC and Talent Search having the highest advisor to participant, ratio. So you have to invest over 85 to probably 90% of your budget in personnel and fringe. So please, please, please do your budget if you haven't already in Excel. Plan it out and look where the gaps will start popping up throughout the years. And you can't don't plan on any carryover, right? Even though in reality you may have some carryover, but you don't want to have to do that. That's the first thing you work on. And that lets you know the staff structure you have to have. And that lets you know if you need to let a position go, which I think will be the case. And we're having to deal with that with a lot of our clients, the hard reality, the harsh reality that some of these positions, administrative clerical positions, will have to go. Some of their tutoring probably will have to go and be replaced with online tutoring. So those decisions need to be made now, not at the last minute. If you're wanting to save certain positions or, have big gaps in supplies, in travel and in other parts of your budget, now's the time to start asking your principal investigator, whatever department you report to, if they can find out a way to provide you with those resources and materials. And if anyone's out there that's applying for new funding, that's going to be real difficult to do with the current salaries we have to pay to establish, to be able to afford a new program. So always see if you can afford to continue the program and if you can afford to establish a new program. You'll know within a couple of hours. I mean, initially. Now, if you're trying to get folks on at the campus or agency to help supplement, that might take some time, but then you can also start immediately collecting the data. Okay, those are the two things that take the longest to, well, budget pretty much to solidify a commitment. If you need it, that takes a while, but you can easily write that off if you manage to be able to fund everything as it is right now. You can say, okay, there's my budget. That budget in Excel pretty much gives me the backbone or the framework for the rest of the proposal, because everything really goes back to the budget. The number of people you have mentioned, positions, and the plan of operation needs to match your budget, and that needs to match your quality of personnel. So everything follows through there, and ties into that. So you really can't start updating your narrative until you seal in that budget, or at least have a draft budget. Like I said, best case scenario is we find out that we get an increase. So it's always very easy to put in more money, put in extra money into a budget than to take it out. Someone's asking, do you think the GANs will come out in time? I believe the GANs will come out late in the summer, later than they have come out before. So we definitely should know something about, the GANs and how much we can ask for before this is submitted. We'll have to. But out on time, remind me when you guys usually get those. Do you usually get them in May or June, or no? Hasn't it always been June or July? I'm thinking that perhaps because there's a bunch of the folks that retired in the department, that everything will be shifted back. So, our folks with SSS, that competition, okay, September or start date. Yeah, July or August. So not, kind of close already, always, right? So, there has been mention at policy seminar, and let me know if any of y'all went and heard James Davis. He was speaking, I believe, this is third, I was not there. But he was speaking to, I believe, the SSS folks directly when he mentioned that they may want to think about a one-time no-cost extension of their current budget in case for a couple of reasons you do a no-cost extension. And that's because one-time no-cost extension, usually, historically, the request to extend your current funds into the next funding cycle, that usually was reserved for folks that did not get refunded. So that's why he was telling the SSS folks, you may want to request, not so much because you might not get funded, but we might be a little late in notifying. I mean, in the same, the way it was explained to me, they were saying that we're going to try to get them out on time, but some of y'all may want to request a one-time no-cost extension. Not necessarily saying that you might not get refunded, but if they take a long time to let them know, then you'll have some money to see you through, for the first couple of months, or the first month, of the new funding cycle, because we don't have the GANs for them, for being out. Now, in our case, for Talent Search and EOC, if there's a delay in that, it's not the end of a funding cycle. So they're going to have to probably let you know that you can use carryover automatically, or something's going to come out if in case they're late. Okay, so that's just the worst case scenario in case they're late getting you the GANs. Okay, it's always a possibility, right? So I've never, what I can remember, I don't, anyone out there, let me know if you've ever remember a time when the GANs for Talent Search and EOC did not come out in time during your funding cycle, and how that was handled. The real drama is when it's at, a year from now, when we're on our last year of funding, and it's taken a while to find out if we've been refunded, what's going on. And that's what the SSS folks are going through. So let me know if anyone's heard anything. I think we do have a question. Let me go ahead and click that. I'm new to Talent Search and writing my first proposal. I noticed that the proposal writing workshops with other organizations offer technical reviews of up to 3 sections. Can I do the same thing virtually with you and pay you to review multiple sections rather than the expense of travel, hotel, and food to go elsewhere? Well, we actually do offer technical review services, and I can have Donna, if you could go ahead and put that in the chat, the link to our website. We don't do sections. We do the whole thing, and we do everything virtually. You don't have to travel with us. So if you're interested in that cost, let us know. But we offer, through our technical review services, we provide, based on your budget. And if you're an agency or college, we provide, with the technical review services, you also get templates for each section. And we work, and then with the technical review, you have the option to utilize the templates and customize it on your end. And then we review each section twice, the whole thing. Okay, so we don't do pieces. The only piece review was not even a piece review, but we do have another service where we review and can review your, or help you with your needs section data collection, in the sense that we can give you some feedback, looking at a spreadsheet saying, so far what you've collected, it's showing need, it's not, we would do this, we recommend here, or here's another link you might want to use, or let's redo your target area and see where, just assist with that. So that we have that data collection assessment service, and Donna's also going to put in the chat the link for that. But we do not do pieces of that. And that offer there is part of your institutional membership. So y'all are paying an annual fee every year. And then once every 5 years, although you pay every year, once every 5 years, you get to receive that service. Some people say, oh, free of charge. Well, it's not free because you're paying every year for institutional membership. So that's where they do that. Now, I don't know, they may be offering it virtually too. You might want to find out, because they do have their virtual workshops coming up. Okay. So thanks for that question, but we'll put some information in the chat so you can see that. And then I saw your website, you offer this. Okay, it's for the whole thing. It's for the whole thing. It's for all 7 sections plus the competitive preference priorities. When they finally come out, we with that technical review, we provide templates, and then you customize them based on your budget. We provide the templates, and we go back and forth and reviewing. We not only do, we're looking at content, and we also advise on, recommendations, things like that. And that's more popular than our proposal development. Our proposal development is where we end up writing every single line of your proposal. It's double the cost, but some people can't afford the time and effort to do it. They're not simply, we don't have the time to do it. So they hire us to do that, and then they review what we write. In this case, we provide templates and have you all write, and then we review and critique it 1 section at a time in order to get the whole package together. And that's actually our most popular service, and we are still taking clients for that. So if y'all are interested in that, please let us know. You can send me an email and info@nosotros, edu.org. Right. So let's see here. We were talking about the proposal. Let's see here. The RFP, again, I would recommend the budget and then your data collection. And you start putting on a spreadsheet and start with your target areas, both EOC and Talent Search. It's all about your target area. If you're wanting to keep the same target area, great. Okay. But can you describe your target area in about 3 to 4 sentences? All right. You need to describe your target area. And it may, for some places, not be a big deal. Maybe it's the target area consists of 3 counties. These are the counties, and they are 50 miles west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in a very rural or an urban location. Okay. The population is this much, consists of this, type of population. That's fine to say. It's the facts are the facts. How many people are there? Rural. What's it close to? Is it a county? Is it a city? It could be short and sweet, and that's all you need to do. You don't have to go on and on and on, because you don't really get points for that introduction, right? Because the questions and the points that you get start with the very first question about the number of families, low-income individuals in the area. But of course, you don't want to start right into that. So you want to have at least no more than 1 paragraph made up of 3 or 4 sentences about the target area. And people say, well, I'll do that last. I said, no, you really should do it first to yourselves. I mean, just write that up, put it down on paper and study it, because now you need to find the data to make sure that target area still works. And you may have to go back and tweak it once you find out, especially in EOC, that there may be pockets. Or, for example, here, I could never write an EOC for the whole city of Dallas. I could not, because there's so much money in Dallas. It wouldn't show, offset with some other areas. So I would have to be more detailed and go into describing the communities or the neighborhoods within Dallas County. Okay. And my target area might be made up of 3 or 4 or 10 different sub areas that all add up to be one target area. And then from that point forward, I will only address it as the target area. But full transparency, I need to make sure I describe, that this is like in Fort Worth. We worked with 3 inner city communities within the city of Fort Worth. Couldn't do the same thing. I couldn't write and say my target area is Fort Worth. I couldn't do it. I couldn't show need. So I had to look and study the data. And initially we said, we're going to write for the city of Fort Worth. That was our target area. Then we started pulling the data and we're like, this is not going to work. We've got to change this target area description to make sure that not only we're talking about specific pockets of the communities within the city, but also that the target schools are within those target areas as well. So even before we started, as we were pulling the numbers, we had an intent, like this is what we want to do. And for those of you that are existing grantees, start with your current target area, unless there's a target area or a location you want to kind of not include in your target area, but then make sure that all the numbers and the schools are still within the target area. Or otherwise you'll have to modify that and pull data a different way. Okay, so that's in addition to the budget getting done, you want to get that description. And again, I want to stress to y'all, you don't need pages and pages of target area description, because you don't get any points for that. It takes up space. If there's, like for EOC, yes, we talk a lot about the target area and its needs. Well, after your short little brief description and how a sentence that says the XYZ University proposes to establish or continue serving this target area, moving forward, no more than half a page, 1 paragraph, because for EOC, all the things that you want to talk about as to why the target area shows a need can be put into the answers where you get the points. So you get no points in the target area description. It's just a setup. It's critical to get the reader very give them a very good definition of what your target area is about, so that you don't have to keep bringing up sub area sections or slice it by counties on all the tables. You could just say the target area compared to state and national rates, because you took care of that earlier. All right. And you want to save all the economic and academic need to come up within the questions that give you the points. I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of, like, 2 or 3 pages on the introduction to the target area. And actually, after the first paragraph where I find out who is this, who's the grantee, where are they proposing to serve, what is it area? Is it a city? Is it county? Okay, I should be able to get that pretty quick within the first sentence in your target area description. And then I skip all that other stuff. I go, I'm not going to read all this. I'm going to go to finally where it says, okay, question number 1. So if you were trying to put some compelling stuff there, most people, I promise you, will skip that and look straight to where their score sheet shows where they're going to start giving points. So all that stuff, that was good stuff, unless you find space and room within this document to repeat it again, has been lost. So save your compelling reasons why the target area shows need. Try to save that after the scoring starts, so you can get points for all that work and all that research. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. Plus, you don't have room. You don't have room for that. It probably will. I have I don't think they're going to have a chance at any time to change anything. So I think we'll still have the same number of pages, but I was always struggling. And I know there's, in the plan of operation, I'd like to expand upon my activity timeline for critical project components, because we got dinged on a couple proposals because the readers said that was not enough information, and I thought it was, and I thought it had been for years, always got a perfect score on it. And then we had a couple of people, indicating that it wasn't enough. So I'm talking to Teresa right now, and I said, Teresa, this is my current answer for in the plan of operation, question number 5, where it talks about the timelines, about project management. And so I said, you know what, I see what they're saying. It was too simplistic. It had the major programming components, and it had a little calendar going across, and it had who was responsible, but they wanted a little bit more detail. So that's going to take up some pages. So I'd rather keep my introduction or my target area description. That's what it should be, your target area description, short and sweet, because you're going to need the room possibly in other areas. Okay. Do you have any other questions? Let's see where.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay, let me go here. Let me look at the chat. Our current, is it this, our current talent search program involves a target area? Is that the one? Oh, yes, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
Okay. Our current talent search project involves a target area with 2 schools, and we want to expand our target area by adding 2 more schools when we renew our grant. Will this cause us to lose prior experience points? No, you can always add. The question is a couple of things. You can add. The question is, should you add? A couple of things to think about there. I guess possibly you're thinking that you are full capacity, either you're full, you want to serve more, or probably you're not getting enough students with the 2 schools that you have. Probably is the case, right? There's got to be some reason. What's the motivation, right? What's the motive? If everything was perfect, you'd be like, oh, I'm fine with my 2 schools, right? So it looks like possibly you need more students, right? More of a pool is what I'm thinking. So you won't lose prior experience points for that, but have you already, I'm assuming you've already done the research and collected data for those 2 new schools, and that those 2 new schools on their own are showing a need when you can compare each one individually to state and national data. That would be the only reason why you would bring them on board. so that, you know, as part of your 4 target schools moving forward. You can't ask to serve any more students now. It would just be more target schools, which in my world with Talent Search is more administrations to work with, right? More travel for your staff, more time and effort for staff traveling between those schools. Can I afford the extra mileage it'll take to get there? I don't know how far away they are. So those kind of things, budget things, but most importantly is those 2 new schools you want to bring on board, or anybody out there who's thinking about adding schools, those schools have to show need on their own. By the way, all your schools, even your continuing schools, every single school must on their own show that they're doing worse than national and or state and or national data. Okay, if you have one school, like when you put them all together, if you're showing that they're all, you know, the average is, you know, doing worse than state or national rates, okay, but you still have the chance of losing points if a reader notices that one of your schools is actually doing better than the state or the national rates. So, you know, you could lose points there. So I wouldn't bring anybody, a new school in if they already weren't showing need individually compared to state or national rates. If I'm going to do that, I have to offset and be okay with losing some of my prior experience points. I'm not saying you can't or you won't get funded. I'm saying that expect to lose points. And you heard say we need more students, but I heard that an increase of 50% or more would cause this. No. It would be if the data supports the new schools, if you need more students, go for it. It would be if you, the major thing is that they don't want you to pull out of schools and shrink down, you know, to start at the schools and leave them alone. Okay, so you want to keep substantially the same. I see how someone can interpret that as, oh no, you have to keep it exactly the same. But the intent behind that is because they don't want you to go from 4 schools to 2, because that would be 50%. And that might risk you losing your points, but not to expand. Okay, not to expand. Okay, so again, you use only state or national stats, not district. Oh, I'm sorry, you could compare it. I'm sorry, let me clarify that. If your schools are doing worse, your schools have to be doing worse than somebody. It could be worse than the district, worse than state or national. In a perfect talent search proposal, which no one will have this, okay? In a perfect talent search or proposal, it would be that all your schools are doing worse than the district, worse than the state, and worse than the national level, and everything. Okay, but it's not going to happen. What you could do is start collecting the data to compare your target schools to each one of these entities, and then make a decision. You know, look, you know, when we compare to district, most of our tables are not showing a need. So, but when we compare it to state, yes, somebody told me at the last meeting or said, you know what, we're not showing a difference when we compare ourselves to state, but when we compare ourselves to national, it is. So you've got to spreadsheet, don't even go near Word to start doing your narrative. Both y'all, everyone right now should be working solely on spreadsheets, a spreadsheet for your budget and a spreadsheet to collect all the data for your target area EOC and talent search for your schools. Plug in the schools you want to serve. You know, if you want to expand, not a problem. If you want to shrink down or remove some schools, we need to talk, okay? But then you need to be collecting the data and compare yourself to everything possible. Some people have to compare themselves to another school district, you know, in another more affluent area, so to speak. And that's the only way they can show need. And in a perfect talent search proposal needs section, in a perfect one, you end up using the same comparisons for every table, but it doesn't happen. You may have to jump around. So that's why when you look at the spreadsheet, hopefully you notice a pattern that maybe most of your tables, when you compare it to the district or to the state or to the national, like these folks did, you know, most of our data shows need when we compare to the national, but there's a couple of tables, they tell me, Lisa, where it doesn't. Can I compare myself to another entity? You know, we did national here for most of them, but in these 2 tables, we're going to have to do comparison to district or to state. And I said, do it. Do what you have to do to show a need. right? Just be very clear at the bottom of all your tables. I wouldn't make a big deal about it. Wouldn't say, oh, please note in the following table, we had to use state data because we didn't show a need when compared to national data like in the other tables. No, I wouldn't go there. I would just say, note the following table shows that's the target area students are graduating from high school, just an example, at a lower rate than the national rate. Okay, I didn't say anything about, well, everybody, all our other tables were comparing it to, to state, and then underneath in the table, I would put the source. And so I would not go on and on about it. The only time I would explain to the reader if I'm having to use a different comparison is maybe if I have to compare that table to another district or another set of schools in another district, because that's kind of off the beaten path. So I don't want to lose the reader. So I might say, please note this data is compared to an affluent, a school district in a nearby but affluent part of the state, kind of to explain that. Well, why did they switch over to that? Can you compare it to a neighbor? Yes, you can. Yes, yes. You can compare it to, yes, to a neighboring county. You may have to do that. It's not my preference, right? We want to, in a perfect world, keep it nice and easy to define. These types of proposals, you want to stay in your lane, so to speak, but sometimes in order to avoid losing a point, you have to shift over and maybe one of your tables compares it to a neighboring county. And let's say it's on all of the tables or just one of the tables, and you take a risk. You take a risk that maybe a reader's not going to like that and pick up on it. Or me, I'm like, hey, at least you worked hard enough to find a need. I can't hurt you because you compared yourself to another entity. More so than, you know what, we're not going to show a need. Just put it there, It is what it is. And we'll say, well, the reason we're not showing a need is because this, and this, and this. Because people will tell me, well, we'll just do that. And can't you write something saying why this is the numbers are showing this? I said, I could write a whole book, but they still won't give you the point because it is what it is. So I'd appreciate when you go the extra mile to show a comparison. And so, yeah, we're showing him when we compare to them. Because at least you have a chance not to lose a point. If you simply leave it like it is and submit something knowing that it's not showing need, game's over. But at least when you switch comparison, you have a shot. Okay, you have a shot. You still may lose a point, but at least you had an opportunity to do so. Someone said, couldn't they just serve those schools if they're in the target area and not add them as targets? You're absolutely right, Gayla. Thank you for bringing that up. So Gayla's right. So when you are thinking about, well, you'd have to expand the target area. See, in order to serve, like right now, y'all, right now, you could serve Talent Search. You could serve a school that's not listed as an official target school, as long as the school is within the target area you described in your proposal, the one that you're currently funded under. Okay, so the question I think, though, in this case was initially, correct me if I'm wrong, that these target school, the two new schools were outside of the target area. So you have to expand. So yes, so you can't decide, well, I want to serve those two other schools, but if they're not in the boundaries of your target area, then you cannot, unless you get prior approval and have to show need in between, or, when you write your new proposal, then, have an expanded definition, with that proposal. But I think that was the kicker. But right now is if you're in a city or in a county and that's your target area and you've got two target schools and there's other schools in the area, in the target area, that are not listed as an official target school, you can go and recruit and identify, recruit and serve students there. They would be at a non-target school that's located within the target area. The definition of a target school is a school that is the focus of your identification, recruitment, and selection. Focus. So we interpret that as meaning that you need to spend more time at your designated official target schools more time there than you do at your non-target schools that are located in the target area, but are not official target schools. You have to keep your time and effort separate. So I always tell people that use this analogy, your target schools are like your best friends. And then the non-target schools that are still located within the target area are like acquaintances. Okay, you would communicate more and see your target school students more on a more frequent basis than you would your non-target schools that are in the target area, but not our official target schools, okay? But if these schools are outside of the target area, no, you can't serve them until you write them in, or if you're dying to do it right now, go ahead and request to do it now, but you'd have to probably provide supporting need section data, and you said you already collected the data. So you could try to get a jump start on that now and request for those schools to be added on. But again, Gayla brings up a good point. If you have a big enough target area already, and there's schools right now that are receiving services that have eligible students, and you need the numbers, go for it. But make sure you don't go there as frequently as you do to your target schools. Okay. Is it possible to add a target area but not add a school in the target area as a target school? Meaning no school in that target area county is listed as a target school. Are you talking about talent search? I think you are, Kimberly. Is it possible to add a target area but not add a school in that target area as a target school? Okay, I guess, Kim, are you thinking you need to expand to get more possible students, to get a bigger pool of students? But when you expand, you weren't expanding to, I guess there's a target school in that area, but then I'm confused. Meaning no school in the target area county is listed. Okay, well, if you expand, then you need schools. So if you're expanding, then you're expanding because there's some targets, there's schools there that you want to make target schools, correct? But you don't have to include every single school that's in that target area. You could pick and choose. I'm not sure if that's making sense. You might want to email me about that. But I believe that is, I would only expand, I would only, in a perfect talent search world or even EOC, if you could get all your numbers in a smaller location, you keep small. There was a time in the 90s when I came on board, but they wanted us to serve, it's like the bigger the target area, the better. And people went big, traveling all over the place. That was the kind of like the motivation, or that was the push. Now it's like, keep as small as you can in order to get all your numbers. But in some of the rural areas, you'll have to expand, right? So if you are needing more target schools, because there's not enough schools, you've got all the schools covered in your target area. If you want to expand, then when you expand, you've got to have some target school. Okay, so I'm not sure. You might need to explain that to me, Kim, because I'm confused. I'm thinking that you want to have target schools in there, and I see that you've got some other talent search programs across. You could always expand your area if you wanted to, and if you're wanting to expand your serve your participant base, meaning that types of participant. Most of us do middle school and high school, but talent search can also work with, if there's no EOC in the area, talent search can also work with high school grads with no post, either recent high school graduates that haven't gone to college, or people who graduated 20, 30, 40 years ago that want to go to college. I mean, you could expand your target area and offer your services there, so you could serve like an EOC to adults in the area, and there's no age limit. You can go as old, you don't break off at 27. You can go as old as you want to or need to if there's not an EOC in the area, and if you make sure that most of your participants served are still in the traditional middle school and high school bracket. So, so yes, Kim, so if that's the case, they don't have to have a target school in that expanded target area, but you might want to include that in your plan of operation that you are intending to serve three types of participants: middle school, high school, and high school adults that are high school grads with no post because there's not an EOC in the area. Okay, so that's something else. What year of data do you recommend, considering that some data sources are a year behind? You have the latest, and it says there in the questions. If you look at the 2021 our program application for both EOC and Talent Search, they always state that the most recent data available. The most recent data available. So when you do that spreadsheet, you just find the most recent data available for all your sources. So someone had put on Facebook, well, what if I'm able to use like the state information? And again, in a perfect Talent Search proposal, I've never seen one yet where the data worked out this way, but they said it appears that I can get all my data from the state education agency for all the tables, I'm guessing. And I had to assume, well, she means they show a need as well, or he or she, okay. But you might have to compare, maybe they meant that my target schools are showing a need when I compare the data that I get on the state report from the target schools to the state. And if they're showing a need in every single category, like he or she said, okay, then that's your one source for all the tables. But most of us, I promise you, one table may have three different sources because there'll be a source for the target school versus a source for the comparison area. And it'll change because some of these things are not running on the same timeline. National data is always going to be 1 or 2 years behind. So if you're going to compare yourself to national data, then those years will be off. But so it's the most recent available. Right now, we're telling our clients when they're looking at target school data to look at 23-24. That's whole school year. If you can get the data for 23-24. And if you don't, if for some reason, you know what, Lisa, they don't have post-secondary information for this year, then go back to the previous year, the previous school year. Just make sure you put a note there. When you put your years, we always put this little note at the bottom of our table. Please note that the data presented is the latest available data for each comparison area, because they're not on the same time frame. So no one can show me one needs section where or tell me that, oh yeah, we got everything on the same time frame. No, national data is always going to be lagging more behind than state, or sometimes the other way around. You never know. And target school data seems to be the most recent, but you just go by right now what you can find and be prepared to update if you have to. Okay, so that spreadsheet is never going to really be done until we get closer to finally putting it into narrative form. But you're always going to be looking at the latest available data, and don't worry if it's different for your different comparison areas. Okay, because we're not all in the same time frame. Okay, the timeline. All right, let's see. We have 15 minutes left. Do we have anything in the Q&A? Let me go back to the Q&A. I recall last time you mentioned you can share a sample budget spreadsheet. Are you able to do that? Yeah, I can do that. I will upload that, and I will do that. So please look for that. I'll put it in a budget folder, and it's just for the first year. I'm telling you to copy and paste and make additional years. And let me see if I can share that while I'm looking for this. I'm not sharing my screen, I don't think. Am I? Let me see.
No,
Okay, I will look that up, and I'm going to look up a 1-year budget so we can talk about that. And that's a good segue in case someone has any other questions. And let me bring up budget. So hold on just for a second, please. And I will bring that up. And I will share this 1-year budget. Okay. Now, a lot of assumptions here on this 1-year budget, okay? And that's why sometimes I hesitate to share examples, because people start comparing the salaries and going, oh, ours is too high or ours are too low. And I'm like, don't think of it that way, please. Think of it it's just numbers I plugged in. And let me see if I can update this. I'll share the screen, and I will put this budget in to help you out. Now, again, this is only first year budget. I would add columns to the right. to offset it and make sure that it's for every single year. How can y'all see this okay? Should I make it a little bigger? Let's see. Let me hit view, zoom. I need to make it a little bigger for me. Okay. Okay. How's that? Does that look okay, Donna? Let me see. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. Let me do this. 125. Let me do that. Okay. All right. So you can see let me just go up here. Okay. So this is based on the dollar amount listed in the 2021 RFP to serve the bare minimum. So you'll have to change it. Those of you that are existing, you would plug in here your current budget for 24-25, the budget minus carryover. Do not include carryover, and however many students you're funded to serve. You cannot ask to serve any more students. Okay. You have to stick to whatever they say in the RFP. And they may change it, the program application, but it's always been when people say, well, you know what, I want to serve more. I want to serve 600. And I said, don't do it. You don't do it. If you want to serve more, write a separate or a brand new talent search. Some people said, well, I want to serve less. Okay, then you have to prorate it. You don't get to ask for that amount of money to serve 400. Okay, there's a cost for participant and you have to reduce your budget by that. All right. And, it might throw people off, it might throw off a reader. I don't think it's going to cost you any points, but you can't reduce the number you can if you want to, but then you'll reduce your budget. But you can't ask to serve more than on your current budget. So here's just a very simple, staff structure. A project director, 100% time and effort. If you're split already, then you would prorate that. Project advisors, there's 2 of them here, and that's 100,000. And again, just don't get fixated on the salaries. You have to plug in what your agency or your institution says you have to pay, right? And then we had some tutors here, but guess what? They couldn't afford the tutors. So that's something that maybe you can afford or maybe not, but I plugged it in there, just the positions, but there's no money in that. And then there's a narrative. And of course, the items in red, the CPPs, we don't know anything about. So I'll take that off because we don't know anything about CPPs until they come out. And here's the fringe benefit rate of 45%. So this is the breakdown of everything that equals the 45%. And there's some categories here in this formula that when you add up all the staff, a part of their salary, you see the formulas are there, is already added here. So if you manipulate the formulas here, then this will be updated, but you have to make sure that this matches what y'all have. Like they have a 35% is health insurance. So you'll notice the formula is for 35%. So you find out, and then you'll have to go ahead and, modify that so that your fringe benefit rate matches. It's been our experience so far that this is about what most people end up having to pay, 45%. Some people, 63%. Some people, 72% fringe. Okay, and that's something you can't control either. That's what your institution or agency has to pay. So you see, once you get through with that, when you add up the fringe and personnel, you've got 80 to 90% of your budget. So this is why everything else is kind of blank, because there's no funding for that. And this is where you need to see without carryover where you're at. There's participant travel, there's supplies here, a little bit of a narrative. I'm going to take out the information about the CPPs before I upload it so I don't confuse anybody. What's under other, and you'll see there's gaps here. And there's items listed here that they won't be able to pay for. And some of these items are not critical. It's just something that people usually end up paying for at a carryover. And then it gets you down to your direct cost. And then you have to do modified direct costs, which means you have to subtract any rental fees if y'all are renting copier machines or if you're renting office. and participant travel have to be deducted from total direct cost to get modified total direct cost. And then that's multiplied times the 8%, and that's added to the total here. And that gets you the grand total, and here's your cost for participant. And again, if you're serving more than 500, then you want to go ahead and make sure that you change that number here, okay? So again, hopefully that'll be helpful. All right, let me stop sharing, and let's see if we have any questions.
Lisa, there was a question in the chat that kind of got lost. It was, how likely is it for new programs to be approved?
I saw that and I forgot to answer that.
Okay.
Honestly, thank you, Donna. Because I saw it and I forgot about it. Again, not to be just keeping it real. It's going to be a miracle to get any new programs funded. And I know I always say that, but really this time I mean it. It was a struggle to get any new ones funded the last 5 years, and I was surprised. Unless something happens, like they decide all of a sudden, you know what? We've got all these savings now, so now we're going to pour more money into talent search competition. So there's more money, so that could change. But right now, if everything stays the same, it's so darn competitive. And, there's only a limited amount of funds. And with everything going on, the fact that I truly believe we will survive, but for, I think the next, several years will be level funding. There's not going to be very much money to have enough money so that when they do the scoring, that it's favorable to folks that don't have any prior experience points. So that's why if you don't have any prior experience points, it's going to be next to impossible, because the cutoff will be like higher than your total score, which is what happened with upward bound math science. I think with the CPPs and everything, I think it was a cutoff was a perfect score was 100 plus, I think maybe 6 points. I can't remember. Let's say 6 points for for the CPPs. So the highest you could score before prior experience points was 106. So we had several proposals that scored a 106. They maxed out. They were brand new. They maxed out. They had a perfect score, but they didn't get funded because there was not enough money. They ran out of money. So that's why I really think for EOC as well, it's going to be next to impossible. I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody, but do the budget. And a lot of people drop out when they do the budget. I've had several people where they all gung ho and I have to be the bad guy and tell them, I feel you, but have you done the budget yet? And when they do the budget, that's when they realize, oh, so I have to I'm going to have to put money into this program like right away. I said, yeah, it barely pays for personnel. You'll have to provide everything else. Oh, and then I said, okay, maybe they get through the budget. Then they go and start collecting the data. And I tell them, I'll review it for nothing because I don't want to take your money, because I know what's going to happen when you start pulling the data. You're going to have some schools or your schools are going to show need in most areas, but there's going to be one table where they're not going to show a need. And no matter what comparison, you weren't able to show a need usually. And I said, that alone is going to cost you the grant, because you can't afford to lose a single point, right? Because you don't have any prior experience points. Okay, so that's why. And the reader scores are coming back. I'm really anxious to see our how we did with SSS, because I really feel they're only getting more critical. I think stuff that we got 100 points for before, I don't think that's going to happen. Again, I think they're really being more going back and looking at stuff and rereading stuff, because a lot of a lot more competition. So that means they go back and look at items. So I've seen a change in the last 5 years with other grants through the Department of Ed. How, wow, we used to never worry about that section, like my timeline, my activity timeline, or I lost 6 points. No, I'm sorry, 4 points in the applicant and community support because I said the target school, the grantee will obtain letters of commitment. And they took 4 points off to say, and I've always said will, and they took 4 points off and said, oh, you should have had them already. So that simple writing in the future that we'll have these in place and the director will have them in the office, I mean, cost, points. Now those were existing grants, you know, the ones I just mentioned about the points being taken off, for talent search. So, you know, I've seen that coming. So just to answer your question, it's going to be really, really tough. We had a perfect storm, did not get, see, even last time. What if there's none in our state? Do you mean no talent search in your state? Let me see, is that a better chance? We don't have modified. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things here. Let me start back up here. Yeah, we talked about the RFP. We're not really sure, have no idea. People have said, you know, my gut is the end of September or maybe the beginning of September, so that by mid-October. For cost per participant, they set the different, is that set different every year? Where is that found? Okay, cost per participant changes if you get an increase from the department every year, if you get an increase. If you get an increase and they give you like 4% more, then you take the new total, excluding carryover, and divide it by the number of students that you're serving, which is the 500. I'm just, you know, most of you serve other students, but that's what I use it by. And so it could change, but if you're on level funding, it doesn't change. So it's always the budget they give you on your GAN plus the number of people you're supposed to serve. Okay, we don't have a modified direct cost on our GAN. It doesn't come on there, yes, but you do have it. It's OMB uniform guidance. And it's taken a while, you know, for them to catch up. You know, this last 2021, you know, this modified total direct cost has been around since 2014. And it's just now hit the upward bound competition that, you know, a couple of years ago where they finally mentioned it. So it's probably not even mentioned in your 2021, but we're bringing it up to you now because you're going to have to face that on your proposals when you get to the budget. If there's no talent search in your state, that doesn't impact anything. I mean, only would be if there was a tie. Maybe there was two of y'all writing for talent search in your state and you guys were dead even. You know, a tie. I mean, I'm sorry, let me clarify that. If there's a lot of existing programs, you know, in that area, sometimes I have a client who he was denied his talent search because they said they had too many talent searches in that area. But I don't know that I know there's not a better chance there. We had a perfect score, did not get funded. Oh, we had one. There wasn't a need, so we could not do the grant, right? If there's no need, that's why, you know, the existing programs have to sometimes work harder to find the continued need. And that's why sometimes you have to switch target schools. And again, sometimes pick up new ones, but then leave some others behind. And that's where it gets tricky. So you can't do that overnight. So you start now with your data collection. You see what I mean? Start now so that you have time. Besides school LOC, what others do you suggest? For what? You might want to clarify that besides schools, what others do you suggest to serve, you mean? And there's no EOC in the area. Okay, letters of commitment, letters of support. Okay, if you are, and let me clear this up here. If you're a college, you must get letters of support or commitment. You want to call them commitment, letters of commitment from your college president, whoever the top person is there saying, we want this program and everything that's in this applicant and community support section that, you know, they say we're going to provide, I back that up, you know, 150% from your college president. If you're a college, then you also have to get letters of commitment from your target schools, okay, or your superintendents from the target schools. Okay, and if you're a college, you have to get letters of commitment from agencies. Okay, if you mention 4 agencies, 3 agencies, then you should have letters of commitment from 3 agencies. Anybody out there with that's writing for an agency, like we were the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Fort Worth, I'd have to get a letter from my board president. I'd have to get a letter or MOU from, and both, you know, for y'all, depending on what your target school wants, an MOU or, you know, a letter of commitment, either one will work. But because I was a Boys and Girls Clubs, I had to get letters of commitment from colleges and universities. Notice when I talked to you college folks that, you know, I said letters of commitment from agencies. You do not have to get letters from any other colleges. Okay. Why? The idea is because they were doing you a favor. If you read the RFP, it specifically does a split. If you're an agency, there's certain types of commitment you need from certain entities you have to get versus if you're a college. What they didn't want, and I thought they would do it as a favor, is they didn't want colleges that were competing for talent search to have to get letters from each other. So that's why they say you get letters. If you're a college, you don't get letters of commitment, or you don't even have to mention commitment from other colleges. You mention commitment from agencies. If you're an agency, on the other hand, you mention commitments from other colleges, but not other agencies. Okay, so check that out. And if we ever have an issue with space or room in a proposal, that's where I go. And if there's a college, I said, you have this extra table that says all the colleges y'all going to work with. You don't get any points for that. You need to replace it, or instead, what I noticed, you don't have any agencies. So that's a problem. So let's, get rid of this table and fill it full of some, and some, you just need three, go for quality, not quantity, when you're looking at these other agencies for colleges to get the commitment and the letters of, don't think you have to have a lot, but don't just have one agency and then have a whole table of other colleges that will give you commitment, because you don't get points for that. We're told not to look for that. We're told to focus on the agency if you're a college, and if you're an agency, we're told to focus on the college commitment from other colleges. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put that budget up there later today. I hope I got a chance to answer your questions. And if I wasn't clear or something was confusing, please send me an email. Other than that, Donna, I think did we answer all the questions in the Q&A?
There's, I think there's one in the Q&A maybe.
Yes, let's see here. Can you give more info about forfeiting points by expanding the target area? I'm in EOC in a rural area, and I'm thinking about increasing our target area to the next county over. Again, if you expand, you will not risk losing PE points, okay? Expanding the intent behind that is to, if you're thinking about reducing or cutting down. Okay, all right. So because if you expand, you're still serving the same schools or the same target area. You're just now, expanding. So that's not going to be an issue. Yeah, so don't worry about that. The question is if you want to shrink. Okay, and mainly it's a big issue in talent search. Okay, now if you can't just pick up and leave an EOC and say, well, you know what, I'm leaving this target area going over here. But if you're expanding, that's not a problem, as long as you can afford for people to travel all that way and figure out a way that you're going to have satellite locations there so that participants can be served. So don't worry about forfeiting by expanding. The issue is if you think about shrinking your target area or eliminating target schools, that's you could if you don't do it the right way. Okay, so don't worry about expanding. Just can you afford it? Okay, and then yes, the it'll be in the Google Drive. Give me some time, probably later this evening. I'll have it up there. I'm going to clean up a few things here, just make sure that I take away the mention of the CPPs and just make sure the formulas, I'm sure they're okay. We looked at it earlier, but you always catch something. I'm going to tweak some of the narrative too. Okay. So thank you all for joining us. I appreciate you guys being a part of this. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you next Monday. Have a great week. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Leah. Thanks, everyone. And I think we got the questions.